Ahead of the NFL draft, just over a week away now, Todd Archer of ESPN.com dropped an article about the 10 years since Dak Prescott was drafted all the way down at number 135 overall in the 4th round of the draft in 2016. So that got me thinking. More and more quarterbacks have been drafted high in the last decade than any other period in NFL history, which has also led to a group of retread quarterbacks given up on by the team that drafted them, finding success in a different home. So I want to do a kind of thought exercise where I'm going to go around the league and look at how quarterbacks have been drafted in about the past decade and kind of determine what our hit rate is and what that says about the league and its development of the most important position in sports. This year we have a pretty clear number 1 overall pick in Fernando Mendoza in what is pretty clearly a thin quarterback class. So let's take a look at the rest of the NFL and see how franchises have made out at the most important position in sports relative to where the players were picked, starting with the NFC East. The Cowboys. The reason for this video, Dak Prescott is about as good value as you can find in the draft. He was selected as an insurance policy for Tony Romo, who came into the 2016 season injured, and Dak never looked back as the starter. He's one of the best 4th round picks ever at the quarterback position. Cowboys haven't had to consider drafting a franchise quarterback for 10 years. For the Eagles, speaking of value, Jalen Hurts seems to be living in the Dak Prescott zone of 4 years ago, where his job security is constantly being questioned. But anyway, the thing we do want of Jalen, I spoke at length about him in last week's video. He's as good as it gets for 2nd round draft picks, with a 2nd team All-Pro and Super Bowl MVP to his name. Before him, the Eagles took Carson Wentz 2nd overall in 2016, the same year as Prescott. It wasn't a misguided pick, as his 2017 season showed, but football is an unpredictable game, and who would have thought his flameout would give way to a 2nd rounder in Hurts, leading the franchise's golden era. Funny old game. For the Commanders, they appear to have gotten some reprieve in the form of Jaden Daniels, but we can't let them forget their draft history. Sam Howell got a season as a starter after going in the 5th round. The late Dwayne Haskins flamed out after going in the mid-1st in 2019. Before that, it was Kirk Cousins' team for a long time, and his selection was a bit of an undermining of Robert Griffin III and his draft selection earlier in that same draft. In odd draft history to say the least, but Daniels, if healthy, may be their savior yet. The Giants, after years of Eli Manning, it had been so long since the Giants had seen a good quarterback, they thought Daniel Jones was one after 2022. His injuries and general mediocrity led to them moving on and selecting the rarely successful late 1st round quarterback in Jackson Dart. I didn't mind what I saw from Dart last season. Outside of those two, Davis Webb is an offensive coordinator now, so things didn't really work out on that pick. To the north, the Bears finally have a guy in Caleb Williams, their most promising quarterback in franchise history. Before that, well, they're not helping the hit rate of high-paid quarterbacks, let's say that. Mitch Trubisky at 2nd overall is one of the worst misses in NFL history, going ahead of Pat Mahomes. Justin Fields was an exciting talent that people will still talk themselves into, but shouldn't. He is now Mahomes' backup. The Packers, another team making it work with the late 1st round quarterback. We know how the Packers get down by now. Have a franchise legend at quarterback, draft his replacement, make him sit for 3 years. I don't know how intentional the timetables are when the Packers do this, but you can't blame them. It clearly worked. Also, Love is in the upper echelon of late 1st round quarterbacks. The Lions got over a decade out of Matt Stafford before swapping him for Jared Goff, a move that we can look back on as a rare win-win trade. There was a moment there where some thought Hendon Hooker was in line to take the wheel, not the case, but Goff is a retread and a former number 1 overall pick cast aside and born anew in Detroit. It isn't a point in Detroit's favor, or the Rams really in that sense. The Vikings will be rolling with a cast-off number 1 pick of their own in 2026 as Kyler Murray has joined Goff on that list. This is basically Minnesota accepting that the J.J. McCarthy pick was a total miss. Fair enough, but not good for our hit rate. The Seahawks have been coasting on a veteran presence at quarterback since they drafted Russell Wilson, and I'd say it's worked out. They got out of the Russ business at the exact right time and took advantage of the league's ignorance to get some good years out of Geno Smith before turning to Sam Darnold to help them win the ultimate prize. In a league where the method for finding a quarterback is often just keep drafting, the Seahawks have found success in another fashion, and I respect that. It's hard to know what to make of the Rams. Goff wasn't a failure, but they did punt on him before he turned 30. I think that's a hit, but you can't forget they drafted 2-time national champ Stetson Bennett as well. For the Cardinals, Josh Rosen might have been the biggest bust of the past decade. They paid Kyler Murray a little too early and are now eating a lot of money for it, but that can't be a total whiff if Rosen is. Overall, it's a really tough scene for the Cardinals, who seem intent on starting Jacoby Brissett next season. The 49ers made a mockery of this thought exercise. They have perhaps the biggest whiff of any top quarterback pick in Trey Lance, but also probably the best value for draft position pick in Brock Purdy, who has gone from last pick in the draft to franchise quarterback. They are a genuinely quarterback-proof team, as if making the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't proof enough. The Buccaneers, another team making it work with veterans. They got 3 great years out of the GOAT and somehow have made it work with Baker, former number 1 pick who the Browns gave up on. They took Kyle Trask in the second round in 2021, which probably means they had better hopes for him, but that didn't happen. The Falcons, it didn't work with Desmond Ridder, not off to a good start with Michael Penix Jr. They paid Cousins a lot of money for a lot of nothing. I see why these fans miss Matt Ryan. For the Saints, the post-Breeze world has been unkind. Spencer Rattler showed some flashes, but is ultimately given away to Tyler Shuck, who does look promising. But there were some lean years there. Jameis Winston, Trevor Siemian, even Ian Book. The Panthers, in a post-Cam Newton world, have been probably worse than that, but thank God Bryce Young is showing some promise. Although, gun to my head, I could see him joining the retread club next season. I'm rooting for you though, Bryce. There are a few casual third-round whiffs in their draft history as well. Over in the AFC, we'll start seeing some more hits now. The Bills, luckily, haven't had to ask too many questions in the past decade. It's Josh Allen's team, it's Josh Allen's city, it might be his world. The Patriots, despite a promising start, the Mac Jones experience was a disaster post-Brady. Drake May, however, is clearly the truth. The Patriots balance out our ratio here, although the Bailey Zappi thing wasn't great. The Dolphins, in the same offseason the Cardinals paid Kyler too early, so did the Dolphins with Tua. He's now fighting for a job in Atlanta, and the Finns have turned to Malik Willis, who is a retread, but not even a former first-rounder. Even though it got really dark for Tua last season, I wouldn't call it a full swing and miss for Miami. There were moments, and isn't that all we have? Isn't Mahomes' 8-year run just a moment in time? Anyway, I hope Malik Willis makes it work with Miami. The Jets are the saddest story here. Doesn't take a genius to identify. Whiffed on top 5 picks in Zach Wilson and Sam Darnold. Tried the retread thing with Fields last year. Another whiff. Tried the veteran thing with Rodgers. Whiff. A little Flacco here, a little Mike White there. They're now going back to Geno Smith, who I would say was a miss from them as well. The Ravens capitalized on league-wide incompetence, selecting Lamar Jackson 32nd overall in 2018. Surely someone with his talents would not make it outside the top 10, probably 5 today, probably go first overall. Look how far we've come. Pay the man. Lots of misses for the Steelers. Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph were the draft picks tasked with turning the franchise around at different times post-Big Ben. It did not go either their way. They've tried a bunch of veterans and will probably go with Aaron Rodgers in 2026. Bad. The Joe Burrow experience is similar to the Carson Palmer experience for the Bengals, just about 15 years apart. Meteoric rise, injuries derail things, but Joe is awesome, and going from Andy Dalton to Joe Burrow is a sneaky smooth transition. Now we all know the Browns. They couldn't make it work with Baker, a shock at number 1 overall in the first place. He's having success now and won't let them forget it. They gave Deshaun Watson the worst contract in NFL history. They cycled through Joe Flacco, Dylan Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders last year. It's bad. They're the worst. They're the franchise that took Johnny Football, tried to retread RG3. They're not good at this. I can't wait to see who they pick next year. The Chiefs, it's a 500-foot home run. Mahomes fell in the 2017 draft just a little bit, and they traded up and got him, waited a year, and have run the league since. It's as good as it gets. The Chargers, Justin Herbert has turned out great after staying for his senior year at Oregon in 2019. He has detractors for his playoff performances, but this clearly goes in the home run category. For the Raiders, well, let's see what kind of company Mendoza will be in. Since Derek Carr left, it's just been Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, and Geno Smith, O'Connell being the only draft pick. Yeah, I'd say there's some pressure on Fernando to turn the franchise around. Good luck, kid. For the Broncos, the post-Manning world has been a lot of misses for Denver. Trevor Siemian, Paxton Lynch, Drew Lock. Bo Nix seemed overdrafted, but it's worked out well thus far. I'm still a skeptic going forward, though. For the Texans, believe it or not, I'd say Deshaun Watson counts as a hit. The team did nothing wrong. Watson did. He was great for a little while, made the divisional round, blew a large lead to Jesus himself. No shame in that. The Stroud pick was a hit, despite the last playoff game. And I dare say nobody excels in their role quite like Davis Mills. The Texans might know a thing or two about this quarterback game. I'm never convinced the Colts have a plan. After the absolute home run of Andrew Luck, they've brought in veteran after veteran and whiffed on the Anthony Richardson pick. For the Titans, they have quite a few misses. Mariota didn't live up to the hype. They took Malik Willis and Will Levis in back-to-back drafts, just trying to hit something. They appear to have hit with a high pick in Cam Ward, and deserve credit for making it work with Ryan Tannehill, who really started the retread quarterback trend. For the Jaguars, finally, a bunch of misses until a can't-miss prospect in Trevor Lawrence came along, and even he's been up and down, but mostly up right now, hopefully up for good. So I really found myself going through these drafts and saying, wow, that pick was a home run, a lot less than I thought. And I didn't have high hopes to begin with, but I feel like we look at the NFL and we're like, wow, there's more quarterback talent than ever. The retread quarterback trend has been great for the league, but we have to ask ourselves, looking at this list, why are so many teams so bad at getting the best out of this position when drafting it? I think the key here is that the organization you're drafted to means more than anything. All this to say, knowing the Raiders, it might be more likely that Fernando Mendoza flames out in Vegas and is good somewhere else under a Shanahan scheme in 4 years, then turns the Raiders into a serious team. History says we're not too far off on that. If you made it to the end, I appreciate you sticking around with me through this diatribe. I also want to say thank you for last week's response to my video. It was by far the most viewed, most interacted with video on my channel, and I just want to say I appreciate that. I appreciate all the new viewers, whether that was your first video you've seen of mine or your 40th. It means a lot. I'll probably have more draft stuff next week, or maybe some soccer with the Champions League, or maybe some hoops with the NBA playoffs starting. It's all deadly. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.